Hello and welcome to Life Challenges, better known as a conversation with Dr. David Klayman. Today we're talking about mental influence. Influencers. That seems to be big in this generation. Nothing I've seen before, but I understand it because I'm a hypochondriac. And if you tell me that I don't look good, I've gone to the doctor. I mean, I just buy into it. I'm going home and go to bed because you told me I didn't look good. So I understand what influencers can do. But when it comes to anxiety, depression, and deeper subjects, although hypochondria is deep, but isn't that kind of scary that we have people labeling us now?
Well, since you brought the topic up, which is not one of my favorites.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's because we weren't really ready for COVID.
No.
And that's really where a lot of this has crystallized into being sensitive to and realizing mental health and people being vulnerable. And all of those things are true. And it's true. But somehow now it has become so overwhelming that we need 25,000 online therapists ready to take care of everybody's kind of distress. There's tons of literature that it's real. It's real from little kids who no longer go to the playground and lost contact with their friends, to folks who want to go back to work. And if you are a professional who follows this, many of the people that I talk to who are still seeing patients tell me about how unbelievably distressed people are.
Distressed is a good word, though. I mean, I can be distressed today. That doesn't mean I'm going to be distressed tomorrow.
Well, I think the idea that we don't know the way out back to the way things used to be, plus the addition of all the other tensions in the world, I believe, and this is pure opinion on my part,
Okay.
I believe that this kind of conflagration of the end of a predictable society where rules had impact, where there was at least some consistency, us learning that a lot of the institutions in which we had faith have turned out to be either incompetent or fraudulent. The heroes we had, which we never really had anybody that was as great as we thought they were, except the dead ones, like Washington. Where do people turn now? They were socially isolated, and you know I have two pet peeves in this world. One is 24/7 media, and the other is social media. With people sitting, I was at a restaurant the other night. There were 6 people around the table, and 5 out of the 6 were on their phones.
I've seen that a lot.
And
yes.
I want to
yes.
go and say, which one of the other people are you talking to? Who's left out?
Yeah.
I am guilty, excuse me for itching. I got allergies like crazy today, and
Pollen.
and the wrong glasses on. So the influencers are responding to what has occurred in both the workforce and in general social life. We had a prolonged period of time where there was an enormous amount of stress on people, either those who got COVID or those that didn't, those who believed in it, those who didn't, compounded by the background of politics, of things not being predictable, and with that loss of life within families, and that was, every day. Now imagine, go back to when we were going through COVID in the 1919, seems like yesterday.
I know.
With the counts of people dying every day, with the pictures of people standing outside of an ICU room, with the idea that kids couldn't see their friends anymore, they couldn't go visit their grandpies, they couldn't go do any of this kind of stuff. I don't remember anything in my experience, both as a human being and as a professional, that has ever had this many factors impacting people with uncertainty. That's the other part that I think is really important. In the old days, if Dr. Fauci would have gone on television as the chief of whatever he was chief of and said what he said, it would be reported, and that would have been the end of it. Like we lined up for our polio shots and we got our measles stuff, we got our inoculations, we were born. There was no debate about those things. We just did them. Not to detriment that I know. I didn't get any of the diseases that I was inoculated for.
Right.
So I think if you take a look at the way the world was, and I'm just putting this together now, what a horrible way it was for those year and a half, 2 years. Death counts every day. Anger and controversy every day. Parents who were staying home to take care of the kids who had no idea what they were doing, kind of maybe happy to be away from the workforce. This is another issue we'll get to in a sec. But all of our social model was gone. There were no school buses in the morning. There were no people on the subway in the morning. There were no people going to meetings in the morning. You know,
We were panicking over toilet paper.
well, panicking? Holy mazzoli. I mean, I saw the lady, I was up at Kroger last night, and during the water crisis, trying to get a case of water. Well, the nice people at Kroger, because I'm up there a lot, used to save me 2 cases when they would get their deliveries. I could go back, get my 2 cases, and run out. And I thanked her. And she says, well, because we've known you for 30 years. You're always friendly. You've never been angry at us. Last week was my enjoyment of finding, for instance, okay, this is a good example. It says stuffing and gravy.
Okay, it's just the grocery store, stuffing and gravy.
Okay, so 25 minutes later, I got the gravy, but I don't got the stuffing. And I looked for 20 minutes in that aisle thinking it was me. It was with the powdered mashed potatoes 3 aisles over, but they hadn't changed the sign for gravy. So, but this is the way the world is.
Right.
You know, we're building big stores. We're talking about a world that is in strife now. But if we just stop before October 7th and go back before Hamas, and please, people, don't write in. This is not a political show. Look at the world. Did you ever see the pictures of the kids when they were taken for a walk for the first time and saw their best friends from kindergarten?
Oh, I've seen that on Facebook, yes, that's cute, yeah.
But it's also descriptive. What about the first time you went out to dinner and you didn't have to wear a mask?
Oh, good Lord, yes.
Or you went to a meeting and you saw somebody you knew and you didn't have to worry about giving them a kiss on the cheek. Or. So this influencer, to go back to where you are, is that we have people out there in the media, social media, and on TV,
And yes,
creating this air of chaos because it sells, and people get scared, so they watch more, they see more ads, my opinion, and they get frightened. And so when you go into a therapist and you say, hi, I'm frightened, if you're 11 years old, you've seen your parents upset because they're either being downsized from their job because of the outsourcing stuff. They went to the grocery store and they couldn't get anything they needed. They are not as comfortable in their jobs, and they're trying to take care of 3 kids in the home, and each kid wants some attention. What do you think the parents are going to feel emanate from there? Love?
total fear.
Confusion, frustration. That leads to anxiety. That can lead to depression. It makes sense. It makes sense. But I think we have a generation, including some of the older folks, who have lost a sense of resilience. Because not everybody has become upset. More. And we can't negate it, because if you negate it, then there's no way in the world they're going to get better. And it's going to take, I hope, it's going to take another several years until people are back in a pace. But we get through COVID. Then we get through the trials going on nationally. We get these stories about people. We have somebody on one side saying one person's old and not functional. We got somebody on the other side. Who are you going to believe? Who are you going to believe?
It's really it's you know I watched Bill Mayer.
I don't know.
Anyway, I watched him the other night, and he talked about Walter Cronkite. I can't talk, and Walter Cronkite used to close his program with "That's the way it was. That's the way it is," and now money is the news. News is selling. You sell advertising. You're 24/7 again. You're selling. So you get to the point of what do you believe? Because what are you selling me? Does scaring me make me watch more, react more? Does what? So it is, in that sense, very confusing as to what to believe and what not to believe.
And who's controlling the beliefs? And you know, and because we have access to those information sources, unlike we ever had in the past. I was thinking about, I talked to somebody the other day, and I said, one of my most exciting parts of being a clinical faculty member for the University of Med School is I get 27 an hour access to the library.
Ah.
I also get 72-hour access a day to Google. I mean, people that believe in Dr. Google. So you tap in. Let's get away from human beings. You tap in. You got a kitty cat that's got this stuff going on. You tap in the symptoms. Now with AI, going, oh, we are looking up the thing on AI,
Right.
and it comes back. Cats can have the following, and it makes this list. It doesn't help us. It overwhelms us. People are reading things they don't understand. We've got financial issues. I got excited yesterday that I walked out of Kroger last night with a bill under $10.
That's amazing.
I didn't buy anything. That's the problem. I mean, I had this little tinky bag. So I think that the fairness is to say to people, if you're feeling the manipulation and the whole idea that we're creating something, it's just part of a bigger picture. And people are hurting. And we've now at least brought mental health out of the closet. This is Mental Health Week, at least it was last week. People are having programs. I'm participating in a couple things. I was up at the FBI Center doing preventing suicide with cops. We got some programs coming up with police in the next year, normalizing their behaviors. So we're talking about people who used to sit and not say anything are now saying stuff because, again, in my mind, when they get ready to get back in the world of life, doing stuff, all the predictable stuff is gone. I have so many images of life pre, during, and immediately post-COVID. We have a large auto dealership in Charleston. You would drive by their lot and there'd be no cars in the lot. None. I mean, I'm talking about 20 rather than
Right.
200. Just that image shakes people up.
But I think sometimes, oh God, I hate to say this, age gives you a different perception.
Yes.
Because I've lived through a lot of phases,
Yes.
marriages, other things that I've lived through. Nothing ever goes back to where it was. Nothing ever goes back to
Nothing
where it was.
ever goes
My
back.
children don't get younger. My marriages don't get, life does not cure. You got to move that away. And if you can't move that away,
But if you don't have the skills, or the skills you think you should have developed are not working,
then get help.
That's what they're doing now. People are seeking out therapists by the gazillions.
And are they there?
There are people who are trained in counseling who are in some other professions who are online.
So now counseling is
A
online.
lot of it, a ton. People don't. Now so here's something in the long run that may be good. Coming for weekly psychotherapy for certain kinds of problems is not really necessary. It's not appropriate. If you can be given certain things to practice at home, you can log in from home, you can work. That's going to turn out to be a positive thing. When I finally get my caseload under control, God, I hope that'll happen.
You've been saying that for how many years?
Yeah, 30, 40. But one of the things when we do follow-ups now with law enforcement, we're hopefully going to be able to not have to drag them back to Charleston or back in. They can go at home, they can be on their tablet, we can do a FaceTime or Zoom or Teams. I just want to be equal time to everybody. And talk to them that way. And when you get used to it, it's not a bad deal.
Right.
I still prefer face-to-face for like crisis intervention and other kind of things. But we can do things. But it's turned out that that wasn't enough, for instance, with the schooling. There was no socialization.
Right.
There was no touch.
Right. Right.
We do know that touch, human contact, are all critical to development. So we got a generation of 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds, who are still deficient in developing coping skills for a complex world where right now nothing is predictable. We don't know. If I were raising Sean right now and he asked me certain questions he asked me 50 years ago, 40 years ago, I wouldn't have the same answers.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely.
And so when you say things change, when I look at the chaos in the world right now, which is causing me an enormous amount of angst.
I would think so.
I mean, we got through Watts and all the race riots and those terrible times. When that was the United States, when we were hosing off black individuals who were trying to either go to a school and
Yeah.
all the vile stuff. The other stuff that's coming out now that I don't want to talk about today because it makes me too upset. But we're looking at all the things we've been through, the anti-war protests, the taking over buildings back then, the campouts, the things that are going on. But we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the internet feeding people distorted, false, inflammatory information. Where reason and love and compassion are overwhelmed by vileness and distortions on all sides. This is terrible. So be a kid and try to grow up in this right now.
We're just so split. We're so split. It's an either or. And then when we watch something, our perception of it is so, I mean, watching the schools, I won't go there, but watching everyone have the same tent. And I mean, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions that I would have. I'm not a person to jump in and be a believer right off the bat. But yeah, right now is just a bad time.
And
Just
it's
bad
a time for people to sit back and say, wait a minute, what would we do if we split this country? I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
We have all this talent that comes from both sides of the spectrum. We need each other.
Right.
And people are angry, and people are angry at sometimes that they don't even know why they're angry.
Yeah, I think that's a good question too.
I've had some conversations recently that have been enlightening to me about when people finally get down to some of the anger they have. Some of it's not even related to today. It's related to, I'm going to give you an example. We were lucky enough to be able to go to Europe last month. I still haven't recovered from the airplane. It's been 4 weeks.
That's a long trip.
Yeah. But we had a Ukrainian refugee who lives in the Czech Republic as our tour guide. And we got a history lesson. We got a history lesson about what it was like to be the ancestors or successors to the people that when Hitler came through, even before then, because there were the purges and everything else. The history that they gave us is just fascinating from a personal perspective. And this woman, bright, educated, attractive, funny, until I asked her, does the war in Ukraine bother you? So if you look where Czechoslovakia is, and Prague, and then way over to the east are what's going on in Ukraine.
Right.
She said, oh no, we know that this is going to doom us again. We're afraid that all that we've worked for the past 40 years will be taken from us again. They're living with that. And I said, isn't it over? Aren't you a regular country? And I said, no, They've done it to us before. Why shouldn't we believe it again? And
Right.
so what that did is that said to me, okay, let's go back and really look at history. And there have been a couple things on PBS and one of the other stations, I think National Geographic, that were eye-opening. How we treated Asians when they came to this country.
Yes.
How the Asian population treated itself with the gangs. How the dream and the myth of the American dream was stifled, and they were there. Same for all, and then you go back to the Irish in the early times when they were treated poorly. And we've
And the
had
Jews before the war,
we've had this going on
forever.
forever.
Yeah.
But we did, and I've said these things to you before, we didn't have a camera stuck up somebody's nose in the middle of combat. We didn't put a microphone in front of just any old Joe on the street who could spit untruths or vileness or hate just from inside them. Half of those kids that you see on television are from suburban communities who are spewing hate that somebody has put out there that's not true. I say it's not true.
I think the majority will tell you that it's not true.
Well, but we've got thousands of kids protesting and yelling things that are...
But don't you think that the subject is an excuse to vent?
Yes, I think that we're finding things, but the way it's being done is because I do believe, that there are people from the outside
Oh, yes.
agitating
yes.
this, and it's not
Yes.
just two people, because when I sit down and talk to someone about some of the things that are going on, and we make a pact that all we're going to do is say, this is what we're viewing. I've had very little trouble in having somebody not screaming at me or making a threat.
Right.
I've said on air, I have 2 nieces living in Israel, and we can hear from them all the time, but some of the things we hear are not what we want to hear, and it's overload. It's overload. We don't process. Think about the way we used to take years to have things happen, and now they don't. Take a
Yeah.
look at the Congress, the way we used to be able to predict how they would behave or not behave themselves, and now we have these people, ludicrous human beings, getting on the air, espousing these. Marjorie Taylor Greene is
Yeah.
one of the examples. We would just been laughing at her 20 years ago
But yet, she gets elected.
because
Yet.
something's going on. And the other, if you take, this is way out of my league, but if you take a look at some of the people we have running for the office nationally, I'm not talking from West Virginia, it's all over the country. Who would take president? Who would want to be president?
I don't think people want to run anymore, and that's a whole new issue too. I don't think people want to put themselves out there because they become victims. People attack them and say things about them or dig into their past to the point of no return.
So my newest one is Caitlin Clark.
Oh,
What a wonderful young lady. She's
Yes.
22 years old. She has been cast into the limelight, and Cole Braun, my sailing sweetheart, she's still online, and she's growing, and she's having a great time.
she's the little girl that came in second with the
Around the world thing, and she always ends everything like this. And there's a new kid from Florida who's every night puts something on Instagram about his battle with cancer, and he's just really honest about how much he loves when he gets out of chemotherapy. I'm watching that. I've decided to watch people that are attuned to the world. I do not want to do that, and I say to my friends, and this is the way, we got 4 minutes, this is the way to handle it. This is going to be my only, stay away from the negative, because most of it's not going to affect us directly anyway. Take a look at the positive, your church, the people that you love and care about, the things that you can control, the stuff that is now growing and doing stuff. Be happy that you have that. Sit outside of your house and listen to the birds a little bit. Go and visit a friend. Do something nice. Read about good stuff. It changes you. I'm going to tell you, go on to Instagram. I'm not an Instagram person, but that's the only one I know how to use. And watch the absolutely hysterical things about. There's a new one of little kids who pick up the beat of music, and it can't be a year old. Can't even be, who dance. And they're hysterical. and dogs and cats and birds and people doing stuff that's funny. Pick that stuff up. It's an antidepressant. I do that every night. I watch 15 to 20 minutes of Instagram on the certain feeds. If it's serious, it's gone. It's people trying to do stupid stuff and you laugh. Go visit your friends.
Kind of like Americans' home videos or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to your friends. And we recently had 2 people die in the same week. Clark Adkins, who was, I think we mentioned in the last show, who was just one of the most wonderful people in the world. And Don Lilly, who was equally as wonderful, but didn't have the depth, the breadth thing. Don was my med student. He was the chief of cardiology, and he was just a great guy.
Right.
And when we got together at the funeral, because we didn't have to wear COVID masks, some of us that hadn't seen each other for 20 years were hugging and crying about what we used to have as a community. And so my idea now is that I'm not naive. I do watch the news a little bit each day. Even weather conditions. When do we have tornado warnings every week in West Virginia?
11 touchdowns in the state.
Okay, so take a look at all the stuff. And the old thing we're going to go back to is you can only control what you can control. Look for the good stuff. Look for the sharing of time with your parents. Get rid of the stinking cell phones for 6 hours a day. Don't talk to your friends about every stinking thing. Don't trust the internet.
But the other side of the coin too is when you have an issue, when you have a problem, when you have something, do some homework. Study on what solutions, study on what other people do.
But the problem is that you have so much stuff out there with people saying, don't use Noxzema, sorry, I didn't mean that, but it came to mind. Don't use this, don't use that, because it doesn't. Now the Ozempic stuff, you're getting, after the big, you lose weight now, big surprise, there are some problems with it. And so you got to trust, you have to be able to have some people that, your own counsel, sometimes grandparents, sometimes friends. I have 4 or 5 friends that I trust about perspectives of the world, and I write to them saying, need a perspective.
Right.
And then I'll say, gonna check with so-and-so, see how they look. Sometimes we don't always agree. But in all this chaos,
but be open to that. I have friends at my church that are all in the same age bracket, and I can bring up a subject, and it's good to hear the different sides of the coin, to be able to pick and choose what's going to work for me, how it's going to adapt to me.
And I'm amazed by how creative some of the people I've talked to are about what they're doing, and some of the things I think I might be able to do, but I can't.
That's a whole new ballgame too for age.
But I watch people who stay happy and are pursuing, not letting it get you down, and not. I'm going to lead this. You were right about the attitude, people manipulating. So you have to take control of what do you want. Do you want to be happy? You want to be sad? And
right.
Not everything is the end of the world.
On that note, we ended on a happy note. So on behalf of Dr. Clayman, I'm Sharon King, thanking you for watching the Library Television Network. Till next time, bye-bye.